It's my face, and let's do a quick little review. This is unscripted. This will just be a talking head. I'm going to be talking about what year is this? 1969, although I sometimes see it come up as 1968. Damiani, proto giallo film, A Rather Complicated Girl. So, this is something I've covered on the channel as part of the Forgotten Giallo film series, and finally had the opportunity to watch it. And yeah, let me just give you my thoughts. I will try my best to not go into spoiler territory, but if I do, I will warn you. So, well, let me just say, I will be talking about the movie as a whole. So maybe I won't be giving nitty gritty plot specifics, but I kind of can't help but talk about the whole thing. And for some people, that will be a spoiler. First thing I will say is, some people will ask, is this really a giallo? And when you go off of what I have said in the past, talking about the genre, especially in the 1960s, before the genre kind of fell into a more solid mold of this is typically what it is. It was a very loose term. It was, they weren't really. Anyways, whatever. I'll get into it. Yes, it is, but it's not a typical. It's very out of the ordinary in terms of the plot and the narrative. It is not gonna have a killer. It's not gonna have an investigation. This is one of those late 60s giallo films that's more about society and about the people at the top, these elites who are bored with life and are just kind of behaving badly. Our main character is played by Sorel, and funny enough, I watched it a couple times. I don't know what he does, but in terms of what his job is. But I will say he has this very interesting proclivity for narrating what he sees around him. And it gives him and it gives the movie this very poetic feel to it, which in terms of the writing is very interesting. It definitely shows you that you're in, this might sound a little odd, but it kind of shows that you're in good hands in terms of competent writing. So wherever the plot goes, you kind of know that whoever wrote this, and there was a number of people who wrote this, that they kind of know what they're doing. And so early on in the film, he tries to use a public phone, which is broken, or so he thinks, and he ends up trying to dial again, and he ends up intercepting a phone call between two women, and there seems to be a lesbian vibe relationship going on between them. One of them is a younger woman played by Catherine Spaak, and the other is an older woman played by Florinda Bolkan. And this scene when he intercepts the call was very interesting, because the film then goes inside Jean Sorel's head. His character's name is Alberto, and he starts, because he doesn't know who these women are, but he starts imagining a menagerie of possibilities of what they could look like. And so you've got all these female actors that are just like painted up, and they're like the colors differences going down the face. So it'd be like yellow, black, blue, red, pink, all these different colors. A lot of nudity in this first spot. There's some amazing shots where the younger girl is making the older woman jealous by saying, like, maybe I was just with a man, and I've got a lot of male suitors. And there was this really, really brilliant images of then, like, these, like, she's sitting in the bed again, and it's always like different actors, different actresses, different all this stuff, because in Jean Sorel's mind, he doesn't know what this person looks like. But she's like lying on this bed with a phone, and there's like three guys that are all like huddled over the bed. And then it's this other shot where they're all like, it's like the camera's looking down on like a weird hallway, and each man is kind of peeking out at different intervals, looking deeper into the hallway. And at the very end, the focal point of the shot at the very back is the girl on the phone still. And it got really wild. I remember whenever I see like an abundance of nudity or flashbacks or things like that, I always think about, oh, if I was to be doing this in a gialli tally, like, fuck, this would be a lot. And I had a hard time keeping up with, am I seeing the same person naked? Am I seeing the same two people, three people naked? I have no idea. But that whole scene, this is really early on, it kind of gives this idea of like, oh, this is gonna be one of these very like artsy kind of potentially style over substance type movies. And after that, it kind of goes away. It was really just this great inside his head imagination type scene. But anyways, Alberto then, he picks up on a few of the things the woman had said in the conversation. And talking about, you know, do you think my breasts are too small? And talking about how this man was with her and she, you know, was being used by him, and the way she describes it, whether this is real or not, or she's just making this up to make the woman jealous. And then she says that she's going to be going to this specific church later to, like, you know, atone for her sins. And so Alberto decides, I'm going to go to that church. I'm going to go there. And he ends up seeing this young woman who's dressed in the most, I remember this jumped out to me. First off, Catherine Spaak is very beautiful, but for some reason, her hair in like both this movie and Cat of Nine Tails is always just done up in this way where I don't know if it's real hair or if it's an elaborate wig, but either way, I always think the hair is doing way too much. And it's like, she's got such a pretty face, and I don't know why, but the, you know, costume department or whatever department this would be, they always just decide, let's just give her a lot of hair. And it's just always a little too much for me. But anyways, she shows up, big hairdo. No, actually, she's got a hat on, but the hair is still big underneath it. Got this hat and these big sunglasses. And I just remember seeing that going, okay, now did this look ridiculous in 1969 as it does today? Because that looks ridiculous. Like, I can't imagine someone being like, hey, really cool look. But man, it was the 60s. But anyways, he meets her. He introduces himself. She's like, sorry, I don't really remember you. I don't know who you are. And he's like, he quotes himself from something he had said on the phone call, that he was God listening in. He's like, I'm God. And she's like, oh, okay. All right. Huh. Interesting. And sure enough, they strike up this little romance. He goes back to her place and she's this painter. And one of the things that you pick up, it was a little difficult to kind of pull it out to extract it right away, but it definitely comes up a little bit later. And then upon rewatching it, is that Alberto seems to have performance issues, if you get me, in the bedroom. Whether this is from just having this sort of posh privileged life where it doesn't really work much for anything, but he's clearly become very bored. He has a girlfriend, or at least a girl that has a semblance of a sort of like sexual relationship with, but they're clearly like on the rocks, or it's not going anywhere. And speaking of which, with that relationship, again, the movie does a good job of not just kind of like telling you what's going on. So you really do have to be paying attention and looking at little details in terms of like what's going on. In fact, the first time I watched the movie, when he went to meet the girl, who I think her name is Claudia. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, how did he connect with her? Like, I just remembered he was calling someone, and all of a sudden he was like on the phone call, and when I went back, I was like, oh wow, yeah, that went really fast. That it's just really quick. The phone's not really working, and all of a sudden he intercepts this phone call. But Claudia, or no, his relationship, yeah. So he's kind of got some weird shortcomings, but he kind of feels invigorated with this new romance with Claudia, and she's also a little hesitant to actually go the full distance. And at one point early on, the first day he's at her place, there's like a knock at the door, and she like she go stand out on the balcony, hide, and she's got this other guy come in, this lover, and it's clear, like they kiss, and he's watching the guy as he's standing outside. He's peeking over, and he notices when Claudia like walks away to get a drink or something. The man, whose name is Pietro, he finds Alberto's shoes under the bed, and he's just immediately kind of like looking around. He's like, this bitch she's not being faithful. But he leaves, and Alberto finds out from Claudia that she's like, yeah, that he's like my ex, this is that. And you find out a little bit here, and more so as the movie goes on, that she's very promiscuous. And this is one of the themes that the movie seems to be bringing up, is Italian like sexuality in society, and what like the film seems very interested in just kind of asking the question and posing it, to the audience, like let's talk about this, and remind you, this movie was pulled. This movie was considered like obscene and offensive, and they were like pulling it from cinemas, and I think they were trying to collect all the prints. I don't remember all the full details, but it was something I talked about. And it's interesting because when you go through other giallo films that had come out, the proto giallo films that had come out in the 60s, you get this idea that there is arguably way more offensive stuff that is going on, but it's all kind of packaged in the presentation of, well, this is like a thriller. This is a giallo film. This is kind of, it's supposed to be edgy. And this movie comes off a little bit more like an erotic thriller, and even saying a thriller might be kind of pushing it. But this movie is definitely more trying to say something, or at least trying to just have a conversation, trying to open society to talk about this stuff. And like in other giallo films, like Don't Torture a Duckling does a similar thing with the kids in this that are going to Catholic school, and there's this discussion about the faith within Italy and how this conflicts with changing times and sexual appetites, and like what is normal, what is pervasive, what is. And this movie does it in a very, just a little bit, it both feels less exploitative and also more at the same time. And I know that might not make sense, but somehow the way the movie goes about it does feel more judgmental towards Italian high society, and I see why a lot of them got like offended and were like, we got to get rid of this movie. But Alberto learns more about Claudia, and that I believe her father has passed away sometime, and her stepmother, who's a younger woman but still older than her, played by Florinda Bolkan, has been kind of getting her involved in this sort of lesbian affair, and she's manipulating Claudia into continuing it by being like, well, I'm depressed, I'm suicidal, I'll do something, like if you withdraw, if you don't go ahead. And she complains about this to Alberto, that like, yeah, so I'm dealing with this ex-boyfriend, dealing with you, dealing with my stepmother, who is forcing me along into this. And at one point they go out, they're driving around, and this is after she's told him about Greta, who's the stepmom, and she's complaining, and she sees this like high school aged girl, and she says, that's about how old I was when Greta got her claws into me and started like manipulating me. And the scene the sequence of scenes that transpires after this made me so uncomfortable in this odd way, because again, it's not like, again, to go to Don't Torture a Duckling, it's not this scene of like a naked woman with a little boy where you're like, dude, this is weird. It's the girl is walking by and they call out to her and they're like, hey, yeah, you, hey, come here. And she like walks up to the car and they're like, they start asking her questions and they say, well, we're from television and we're looking for, young, beautiful girls that have got, they've got X factor and that can sing or whatever. Do you sing? And she's kind of like, a little bit. And then she gets in the car with them and they drive off, and then they go to this secluded, I don't know exactly what you would call it. It kind of looks like a little ruins, almost like a ruined little courtyard, but it's like, high brick walls around. You can walk in through these different areas and you just start getting a little bit more enclosed away from anybody outside. You're hiding away from society. And they have her singing in front of them, and bless her soul, she's putting her little heart into it, but it's not particularly great. Not bad, but just nothing special. And they're doing all this to make her feel very vulnerable. Like, they're watching her. John Sorel, who by the way has an amazing performance in this movie, like kind of the same of what he usually does, but also very different. But like, she's singing and he's like going up and he's like making adjustments to her hair, and like he gives her like some flowers that she then uses as a microphone, and then he likes putting flowers in her hair, and they're just doing all this stuff. And by the end, then John Sorel comes and stands with Catherine Spaak, and they're just like, no, she's terrible, she's no good. And the girl just gets really like crestfallen. And then they're like, oh, well, you know what, maybe you can't sing, but there's still something about you, and maybe you can still be the person we pick. We have to we're looking for a certain type of person. We can't give you too many details, but we need to ask you some questions, and we're hoping your honesty will let us know if you're the person we're looking for. And they start asking her about if she's got a boyfriend. She says, I do. And they start asking more questions. She says, well, he's older, he's 24, he's a friend of my brother's. And they're like, well, have you kissed him? Yes. Well, have you done more with him? Have you have you done it? And she's like, no. And they're like, she's not. I don't know if she's ready for this. And they end up like they have her undress in front of them, and because they need to make sure she's got a nice body. And she talks about, I had these photos when I was on vacation, and I was in a bathing suit, and they have her basically take her clothes off. She's modeling for them in her bra and panties, and they're like, having her like turn around, do this, they're just, and then they have her get completely like not naked, but just stripped and vulnerable in front of them. And they're giving her just enough for her to feel hopeful. And then they're just like, yeah, this isn't going anywhere. We've seen enough. Let's go. And they start leaving, and she starts like running after them, like, wait, no, please don't go, please. Like, I really want this opportunity. And she calls them back, and they come back, and they don't show it. It's edited in a way where you're not seeing it, but she basically shows them her breasts. She gets naked for them, and they're intrigued, and they're still kind of like, I don't know. And she runs off and she's crying, and Claudia goes to console her, and after some time Alberto's like, all right, now we go in for the strike. And he goes in, and Claudia's like, dude, no, not right now. And like, it's kind of unclear if she actually cares about this girl or if she's trying to, it's like good cop bad cop type of thing. And all of a sudden you see these two guys approach the ruins, and they go in, they spy on John Sorel, and one of them goes in one way and the other comes in the other way, and they both come in at the same time, and they confront John Sorel and Catherine Spaak, and they're just like, what are you doing? what are you doing? And this is the girl's brother, and I'm pretty sure it's her brother, but it's definitely one of the guys is her boyfriend. And um, they call them out for like, you guys, like who are you? Like, oh, we're from television. And they're like, you're not from television. Like, you can't get naked on television. So like, there's no reason why you would be having her get naked. And so that's a lie. And um, the boyfriend confronts his girlfriend. He's basically like, what are you doing? Like, you're being a slut, you know, like I should tell your father. And he kind of like chases her off, like, you know, get out of here, like skedaddle. And she doesn't really leave. She kind of just, you know, runs into the corner. And the guy starts like weeping, like, whoa, what were you going to do to my girlfriend? And then things get disturbing again. The two guys kind of like, one of them holds John Sorel, and then the other guy goes to Claudia, and he starts like, he's like trying to strip her, like he's gonna like have his way with her. And she like looks at Alberto, and she's like, if you don't stop this, if you don't do anything, I will hate you. And so he fights off the one guy, fights off the other guy. They run away. The guys are chasing after them. They run to the car. Alberto takes his like boulder, throws it at them, and they hop in the car and they just drive away laughing. And they drive past the guys' motorcycle, and they like clip it with their car, so it, you know, is like trashed. And then they throw the girl, because, you know, she was coming from school, she's got her book bag, they just throw the book bag out of the car. And it's just like, wow, these people are pieces of shit. And it's very interesting, because part of me is like, yeah, I like that whole sequence of scenes just made me feel like really uncomfortable. And I'm not particularly like, you know, I've seen Irreversible, I've seen a lot of movies that do far worse, and I'm like, okay. But just something about that was just like, dude, that just rubbed me the wrong way. And and again, it's not like, oh, I couldn't stand it, I didn't like it, but I think the movie did its job, and it kind of got under my skin. But part of me was like, yeah, I don't know if I wanted to see that, but I was like, but no, but this is clearly more so than it's a mystery, is like a character study. And it's this you know, it's this, like I said, it's this conversation about people and these elites. And anyways, moving forward, so I don't want to spoil too much. That's all I think in the first like half of the movie. But as it goes on, essentially what the main plot is. Oh, also, this is something I forgot to mention earlier. When Alberto first goes over to Claudia's place, she asks him to look in her bag and fetch her a cigarette, and like right in the bag is a pistol, like clear as day. It's not like it was in a pocket or it was under some shit. It was very much like, you wanted me to find this. And he brings it up, and she's very coy about it, like, oh yeah, I just got it at this like junk store, and like originally I was going to use it for pop art, and then I just whatever. Why are you keeping it in your bag? And he's like, why are you asking so many questions? And also, we're told after Pietro had left that he's very protective, the word, he's very jealous of Claudia. And so he knows there's a guy there, so he stands outside her place waiting for the guy to leave. And she tells Alberto to go out this back way. So, you know, like, I'll just have him stand out there all night, like, fuck him. And then he goes back. Alberto goes back to his girlfriend again. I'm not really exactly sure what the relationship is, and it's clear that their relationship is falling apart. And so he comes back to Claudia's, and she lets him sleep in a different room. And then while he's asleep, like not really asleep, Pietro comes back, and like Pietro and Claudia spy on Alberto while he's sleeping, and then they like make love in the other room. And Alberto like gets up, like never really having fallen asleep, like always just kind of laying there, like, and he goes and he like peeks through the door, and he sees them making love like on her bed. And he goes back, and then later she comes in, and she's like, oh, you're awake. And he's like, yeah, you know, I just couldn't really sleep. And she makes up this whole story about like, Oh yeah, yeah. I just came to get some water. That was the footsteps you heard. By the way, Pietro did come in. By the way, and he did want to kind of see you, and it's just weird because it was like, was all that imagined by Alberto? Well, I guess not, because she's admitting to it. Um, but you really get the sense that okay, so, and I've been in relationships like this, where there's some other guy and the girl is saying like, just talking shit about him, and da da da, and everything has to be secret, and then you're just like, wait a minute, you're playing me too. You're playing both of us. You're playing, yeah. And funny enough, that my experience also, there was also like a woman, another girl. It was basically like playing two guys and playing a girl at the same time. Ah, wow. Art imitating life, life imitating art. Anyways, so yeah, I didn't even think about that until just now, but yeah, no, I've been John Sorel's character. But things get crazy, and this is where like the real hook of the plot comes in, which doesn't come in until later, which is really crazy. Again, this is very uh, it's not traditional in how it executes its narrative. It very much takes its time and lets you kind of simmer with these characters. But Claudia has expressed to Alberto about her stepmother Greta and how she wants to get rid of her. And she kind of jokes with him, but also in that like you should kill her. You should kill her. It would really be It would really be helpful if you could just kill her. And he's like, I'm not gonna kill her. What are you talking about? It's like, come on, stop. And as the movie goes on, like, he meets Greta. I'm just like, how much do I want to say? Okay, spoilers. I will try to wrap this up really quickly, but if you haven't seen the movie yet and you want to, try and find it. I think you might be able to find it on YouTube, or if you just look it up, you might be able to find it. I bought the movie from a Spanish video retailer, the same way I bought Sweet Body of Deborah, where it's like, it's a DVD, it's coming from Spain. It probably won't work in a regular DVD player, but if you're like me, you have a PlayStation 4, it'll play. I had no problem also putting it in my disk drive for my computer and just ripping the movie using the software that I bought to rip movies. But anyways, I would say if you don't really want to know like what happens further, then now's your time to bail out. So I will say the movie kind of goes all over in these next several. This is basically the last half of the movie. So Alberto meets Greta through Claudia, and she seems nice enough. There's a scene where, and they're at her place. Like I think this is the house where Claudia's father and Greta lived before he died. At one point, Pietro comes by, and there's this weird kind of line or about how, like, I mean, yeah, that's Claudia. She's got to have her boys as well. And there's a part where Alberto notices Pietro like beating Claudia, like slapping her around, and she does the same thing where she notices that he notices, and she's like, if you don't do something, I'll hate you. I won't talk to you. So he goes out, and this was pretty funny, unintentionally funny. Since Pietro is driving one of those really sick 60s hot rod cars. I'm not a car person, so I can't tell you what it is, but it's just one of those very, like, I don't know, like Cruella de Vil type 60s sports cars types. I don't even know if you'd call it a sports car, but anyways, he walks up to Pietro and just like bop, like punches him, and he just like immediately, it's funny, there's no fight, that he just immediately is just like like cowering. And Alberto looks over at Claudia, and she's like go on. And so he I'm thinking he's gonna keep beating him up. No, he walks around the side of the car and opens the driver door, and he just kind of stands there, and he's just like get in, go. And the guy just kind of like, like walks past him, gets in the car, and it, like didn't fight back, didn't do anything. And the other guy, John Sorel didn't like, bah, like hit him in the back of the head. It was just, it's a little awkward how it's done, but it's kind of funny. But he gets in the car and he drives away. And things kind of are, as the movie goes along, it becomes very hard for the audience and for John Sorel's character Alberto to kind of piece together so far as what is she telling me that's true and versus what is a lie, and how much is she manipulating me, how much is she manipulating everybody else. And at a point, Greta goes out for her like daily bike ride, and leading up to this, there's been all these scenes where Alberto has this like video camera, and he's been videoing Greta, and then he'd be videoing Claudia. And there was a great conversation, which, I mean, it's basically a conversation about how to do film, and where it's, you show a reaction, you show a person, you show something else, you show their reaction. What does that convey? So the example they give is, you're smiling, and then and then you cut to me and I pull a gun out at you, and then we cut back to you and your smile fades. What does that convey? Oh, it conveys, fear. Okay, what if you reverse it? What if, it's you, gun, and then you smile, and he's like, oh, then I'm not afraid. And then they run through a few different scenarios of this, but it's interesting just in meta in terms of like this being a conversation in film, but it's like, no, that's basically like film 101 is like, this is how you do it. And that's why editing is such a big thing, because so much of it can convey a lot with the characters versus what is plot wise happening. Because a lot of that stuff is not expressed when you're reading about a plot. Like, and then she pulls the gun out and he smiles. The action is different from necessarily from how the characters are responding, but very insightful for this movie, which I thought was interesting. Like I said, this movie was way more focused on the characters than it was about the action that was happening around them or what they were doing. And so there's basically a falling out. Like, Greta leaves on the bike ride, and there's Alberto has kind of sensed this, like, things are just kind of falling apart. I think he's already made love to Claudia, and she's just being weird. And he's weird, but she's being like I don't know how to put it, but he's getting fed up, and he's just like, I'm fucking leaving. And she's like, yeah, well, I'm still gonna have the property for a little bit longer, so if you want, you can stay there. And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go. And he gets in his car, and he's just like, oh, by the way, I shot these reels of film of you and Greta. What do you want me to do with it? And she's like, do whatever you want with it. He just throws it in there. He's just like, dude, fuck this. Like, I'm so sick of your indecisive. I'm so sick of it. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you're doing. But he just drives off, and then he starts doing his thing that he's been doing in the movie. Whenever he kind of gets a little alone, and he's introspective, he starts doing his narrating, and he, I don't recall exactly specifically what he says, but he decides through his narrations that he's going to kill Greta. And he sees her coming up, and he just whoop, and like plows into her with the car. And then it then cuts to a little bit to like Claudia at the scene of the crime. Oh, it was a hit and run. And then she spies Alberto like off the road, kind of just sitting there by his car. And she walks up to him, and she's like, yeah, it was a hit and run. And she goes off with him. And sometime later, like a few scenes later, he comes back and he tells her, like, I did that. I killed your stepmom. What do you mean? Why would you do something like that? And he's like, you told me to. you fucking told me to. She's like, no, that was our joke. That was just a, like, that was our thing. Like, we would just joke about that. And he's like, no. You very clearly told me you wanted me to do this. And so again, there's kind of like this falling out with them. And this is where things got really weird in the movie. He's with his friend that he was, with in the very beginning of the movie, and they're driving along, and they pass by Claudia and Pietro in like a car, and then they park outside this beach resort place, and Alberto sees Claudia and Pietro go in, and she like looks back and makes eye contact with him. So he goes in and he sets up like a lounge chair where he's going to be like just spying on her, and she looks back at him, sees him, and then this was a weird scene. He sees this other woman who's with like an older guy, and he's basically like what's your phone number? And she's just like 224, gives him her phone number, and he keeps watching Claudia, and then Pietro, all of a sudden he's just like standing like they're under these like shaded areas, like where there's like pool tables or something, or not pool tables, well, there's something, there's like game set up, and he's standing there and he's just kind of like knocking on like a post, and gets Alberto's attention, and he's basically like come here, like we're going over here. And then he looks over, Alberto looks over at Claudia again, and then boom, 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 here's the sound again. He looks back over, and Pietro's like, we're leaving, you come with me. And he gets up and he follows Pietro, and they go out this little way where they're kind of away from everybody, and all of a sudden Pietro knows how to fight, and he starts like kicking Alberto's ass, and he's got a rock in his hand, and he's just like bop, and he's punching him, beating him down. There's not really much of a fight. Like, it's kind of like how it was earlier, but just reversed. And I think he tells him like to back off, F off or something, but he doesn't kill him. Pietro doesn't kill Alberto, and he just kind of like leaves, and Alberto's just like, bleeding. His friend finds him. He's like, what's going on? And he's like washing up, trying to get all the blood off, and he essentially tells him what happened, but he's speaking about it in terms of it hasn't happened. Like, hey, I met this girl, and I kind of fell in love with this girl, and she's really, she's kind of weird, but she's been asking me to, do this thing for her, and like kill someone for her, and I just like, I don't know, like like I don't know if I should, like, I'm not gonna do it, but it's just like, and he starts like kind of walking off, and his friend's like, well, like what's going on with you? Like how are you? Like, what's going on? He's just like, oh, me? I'm in love. I'm great. And he just kind of walks off, and the credits roll. And it's the most like anticlimactic, like, wait, that's it? It's not bad. Like, the film is good. The ending, I don't hate the ending, but it is definitely like, this is one of those movies it's just not a traditional movie. It's not going to have everything wrapped up in a neat little bow. It's, in terms of giallo, it doesn't have like a killer or a mystery. The mystery, if there really is, I mean, every movie kind of has a what's going to happen, is this person going to do that quality to it. So the only thing that really is like a what's going to happen is he going to kill Greta? It's just interesting because it happened in like the last 15 minutes of the movie or so. And I will say, going into this movie, I knew generally what the plot was about because I've covered it, but I didn't have spoilers when I wrote my Forgotten Giallo film episode that included it. So I knew that there was going to be this like, oh, is he going to do it? And then, oh, he kind of finds out that this girl might be playing him, but she might be playing everybody. So I thought that was going to at least come up halfway through the movie. Nah, man. That comes up at like near the end. And it was just very interesting. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing a lot of details. It was a very dialogue heavy movie. Not a super talky, but especially with the DVD I had, a lot of times the subtitles went by way too fast. Especially if they were stacked, it would just be like, fuck, I missed the last part there. And so I didn't want to keep pausing it or rewinding it. So the second viewing, I tried to be way more on top of what was being said. And again, the movie is not trying to baby you, like spoon feed you everything. It really is leaving it up to you to actually do your due diligence as an audience, as a viewer, and like pay attention. And very interesting movie. It probably was way more meaningful and impactful if you were in the late 60s in Italy. And I see why it was considered so provocative and so like, we need to get rid of this. But yeah, the lack of a traditional resolution was very interesting. And this movie gets away with it because the whole movie was set out that way. It was very clearly like, I mean, there wasn't really, the inciting incident was, I guess, essentially him meeting this girl. And again, kind of like in like Pierre Le Fou or Deadly Sweet, it's kind of just this guy who's like, you know what, I'm just a little bored with life, and I'm looking for something exciting, something young and invigorating, and so I'm gonna just do this and see what happens. And in all of those other movies, usually this leads to death, leads to the downfall, and we don't fully see the downfall. And there wasn't, if I recall, there wasn't even really a looming threat of he's going to get caught or she's going to turn him in. So, I'm just kind of, I don't dislike this movie. It was just very different in terms of its plot, its story, and the execution therein. But yes, that was A Rather Complicated Girl by Damiani, and it's good. It's a very 60s proto-giallo. I talk about that a fair amount, where the giallo films in the 60s were very just, it wasn't like you have to do the killer in black gloves, black mask, black trench coat, black hat. You don't have to do this. You don't even have to have it to be a murder mystery. You don't even have to have it be a psychological thriller where a character is going crazy. It doesn't have to be about, well, my wife died, but why do I keep seeing someone who looks like my wife? Is, what's going on here? And there wasn't even an aspect about like greed, like, oh, this person is trying to inherit everything. Claudia's stepmother is siphoning her inheritance. She is kind of like the, what would you call it, the arbiter, the one who controls the money, I think. And so she is kind of trying to get rid of her mother so she can get her money, but it comes off a little less like she's actually motivated by that. And like her, again, unless I missed something, what I kind of came away with was her intentions are very, they're intentionally kind of shrouded in mystery. You don't really know why she's doing the things she's doing, and I don't think she does either. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. Man, I was riffing on it for a while. I was kind of afraid I wouldn't be able to talk about it for more than 10 minutes, but that is A Rather Complicated Girl, and this is Tanner Leeser. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed, and go out, watch some more giallo films, and for God's sake, be nice, be good to each other. And that's all I gotta say. See ya.